Rivertown at Kings Island, from a thematic design perspective, is a land of abandoned visions and contradictory elements. While there's some aspects to love and a few to like, the overall experience of Rivertown is not what it used to be. Hello, everyone. Alongside Ryan Sir, I'm Don Helbig, and this is Tower Topics.
Tower Topics is a podcast by Kings Island fans for Kings Island fans, because that's who we are and that's who we care about.
So, Ryan, Rivertown, I really wish that you and many of our listeners could have experienced the original Rivertown from the 1970s. It had such a unique charm, authenticity, and, today, just a mere shadow of what it used to be.
Yeah, unfortunately, it seems like that's the norm, where a park opens, or at least a park opens an area, and it's got a theme, and the theme is concise. It takes about a decade for them to put in a ride that doesn't really match the theme, and then the theme is out the door. But
yeah, I think over time, the theme of Rivertown, the integrity of it, it's been downgraded, almost beyond recognition, through the park's multiple owners over the years. I think when you look at International Street, Ryan, it's kind of maintained a lot of its thematic consistency. Rivertown, however, not as fortunate. You look at rides like Diamondback, great addition to the park, but with its steel track, and you've got those, supports and everything there, towering in the Rivertown area. Charlie Brown's Rushing River Log Ride, now being part of the kids area, it really alters the original feel that you had there.
Yeah, and again, almost bound to happen. Here's some photos that you sent me, and this from the 70s. I'm guessing I haven't really gotten a lot of context on them. So this is the Beast Arcade, and it has like an old abandoned house kind of look to it. That's really cool.
Yeah,
was it always an arcade on the inside?
There was always an arcade there, and it just had that, like when you look at the buildings and what you had, before Diamondback came in, you had some buildings there that were looking like this, and it's just really, it's kind of, as I visit the park now this year, back as a guest again, and I always start thinking about, those memories get rekindled and what used to be there and how it looked, how it felt. It's just a lot different. And then, let's talk about the Beast. I mean, when that opened in 1979, the original theme that it had was a cohesive theme, playing off the Kings Mills region. There was a backstory outside of the entrance that kind of, got everybody, to understand what they were going to see as they kind of went through the queue. The queue and the station building were designed as an old mill, complete with an operating water mill and mining implements. They were all adjacent to a small lake. So if you came out of the station on the ride, you went around and there was like a little lake around you. It really added to the theme, feel, the charm of Rivertown. It felt like a Rivertown when you were riding the ride back then, but that has all been patched over and largely forgotten.
Yeah, and it's funny because a lot of this stuff is recognizable, but it doesn't continue to carry the theme. I mean, tell us about the Kings Island Train Depot.
That picture you're showing there is from when the park opened in 1972. It was really cool. I remember getting, saltwater taffy and different candies there when we would visit the park in the 70s. The signage, you look at the font and the lettering, for the Kings Island Depot, and it kind of fit that Rivertown feel that you have. But now, the train station entrance, it features this intrusive Coca-Cola advertising. It's rarely open. So it's been, completely stripped of the 19th century theming and the props that it once had.
Yeah, and it's it seems so much more grand too, but now it's a drink refill station, which would be okay if it served its function. But as you mentioned, it's never open.
Yeah, rarely open. Occasionally, on the
Saturdays,
Saturdays you'll see it open and that, but most of the time it's just closed. It's as many people that ride the train, every year, it's not a great look when that's always closed. But while we're on drinks here, we're going to go off on a little bit of a tangent, a little bit. We'll get back to our discussion here, but I want to talk about ice in the drink refill stations. So I have the drink plan. So I go to the Eiffel Tower the other day, get my drink. All five of the drink machines totally out of ice. All five. I'm not the only one that's not real excited about this because I don't know about you, Ryan, but when I get a drink at a restaurant, wherever it may be, ball game, amusement theme park, the expectation is you're going to get ice with your drink. So no ice there. And then a couple of visits later, I'm in the Fest House. The far side, the three machines there, it's closed off, that section, for the night. The other three, two of them completely out of ice. And then the other one had it to where it would only drop like a piece of ice. Then about 30 seconds later, another piece would drop, that. So I don't know why this is a recurring problem. I've got 82 drinks this year at the park, 14 times at the location I went to. I have not been able to get ice. That's a pretty high percentage, right? We both know that there's, a park located about 3 hours from Kings Island that has free and unlimited soft drinks. We got kiosks located throughout the park, but they're always filled with ice. You never have that issue of where you're not able to get ice with your drink. So I don't know why it's so hard to keep the drink machines filled with ice, but it just seems to be a challenge.
Yeah, and I'm sure that any powers that be that would listen to this would say, well, it's hot and it's the ice machine. Listen, why don't you call Holiday World? They have it figured out. Dollywood is never out of ice either. They have it figured out. By the way, both of those places have all their drink machines working too. I went to the Rivertown drink station, the one over by Diamondback, and they had two whole machines that were putting out a clear liquid. I assume it was soda water. Obviously, this is not very important to the park. It's funny because after I went to Holiday World, like we went to Media Day, I went as a guest, bought a ticket and everything. And I started talking about it on KI Central, and somebody said, you know what would be so much easier? It would shorten the lines at Kings Island if they just had free drinks. They added on that charge to either a season pass or to your daily ticket where they had free drinks like Holiday World. Well, here's the problem. Anything that's perceived as free, they think you're entitled if you expect it. So if they had free drinks, you better believe that no drink stand would ever be open. You better believe that those Coke Freestyle machines wouldn't have any selections available. And Don, I'm sorry to say, you better believe there would not be one cube of ice in the entire park because you're entitled for asking because it was free, just like my Hush Puppy. It's not built into the price.
That's all I want with my drink plan is to be able to have ice with my drink.
I don't think you're asking a lot, but at the same time, I mean, again,
I don't like to complain, but it's been a little disappointing lately with the drink plan because, like I said, 14 times out of 82, I've not been able to get ice with my drink, and that's a pretty high percentage actually. But back to what we were talking about, the theming of Rivertown and how it has kind of been degraded over the years. It still looks nice. Like I said, some things, there's lots to really like and be excited about. Some things are okay, and then some things just, not what they used to be. And the impact of Diamondback was something that really altered the look and the feel of Rivertown. It was 2009 when that ride opened, but it really disrupted the entrance for the Beast. That further eroded the theme and the coherence of Rivertown when that happened because you lost more trees than that there. Mystic Timbers, that was a nice, ad, kind of brought back, a little bit of the feel. They did that, really well. It fits in to what would be considered a Rivertown area. The ride, in a heavily wooded area. The station, everything looks, really good. Would have fit in any era of Rivertown. It would have fit in the 70s, would have fit, in the 80s, the 90s. So really like what they did with Mystic Timbers there. Reintroduce some of those elements and feel of the original theme of Rivertown. So if you're at the park, now as a guest and you did not go there in the 70s and the 80s, just think of everything, being to that kind of a level. Then we get to the log flume.
Yeah.
Um, that was a perfect fit for the 19th century pioneer setting of Rivertown. And then they annexed it to the kids area. When it became Nickelodeon themed. Understood that you wanted to add another attraction, you wanted to expand the footprint so you could say you had this much acreage of a kids area and all that, but it really belongs in Rivertown. You look where the ride is, it's right across from the heart of River. You got Diamondback, the entrance to the ride right across from it. You've got the Miami River Brew House right across from it. um, I was hoping, and I'd even like threw out the idea of returning it to Rivertown for the 50th anniversary in 1972. If he gave it brought back the original name, they brought back the wheel, that was there. Everything was in place for it to return to its rightful spot in Rivertown. That didn't happen. Now it looks great as a Peanuts themed attraction. It's now part of the new Camp Snoopy area, but its footprint, it really belongs in Rivertown, and I think you lost a little bit of the feel too with Rivertown by making it associated with the kids area there.
Well, and yeah, it was definitely shoehorned in because that's in Rivertown. That's like having a house and then saying that your neighbor's mailbox is part of your yard. That's the best.
Yeah, well, let's ask our listeners. I mean, a lot of our listeners, we're not around in the 70s and the 80s. So you're not going to remember the golden era of Rivertown, but the flume ride. Would you love to see it returned, back to Rivertown and under the log flume name again, or do you love it as a part of Camp Snoopy? Just uh, drop us a message here if you're watching on YouTube, or send us a direct message, which is on our X, which you can access at tower_topics.
Yeah, just let us know what you think. So Don, a lot of our listeners were not around in the 70s and the 80s, but a lot of them were around in the 90s. And the 90s was really into North Carolina blue for some reason.
They were.
So if you wanted to relive the glory of the 90s, we're talking Clinton administration, what would you wear?
Well, you'd have to wear a Tower Topics t-shirt, which I have on right now. Comes in that North Carolina blue, as you mentioned. Great looking logo, designed by Ryan Sir. And you can get one for just $22 if you're a fan of the show. That includes shipping. They come in whatever size you may need. Just takes a matter of days to get them to you. If you are interested, just send us a direct message, Tower_Topics on our X, and we will send you the QR code. The transaction is done by Venmo, and we'll get that shirt out to you. And for Ryan and I, we have a lot of, we really enjoy it when we see, guests in the park wearing a Tower Topics t-shirt, or we've seen, some different fans of the show posting them wearing the shirt at different, places, whether it's around town or somebody was on one of the coaster trips with the American Coaster Enthusiasts over in Europe, and they were, wearing it over there. So it's a lot of fun for Ryan and I to see that as well.
Absolutely. $22, including shipping. All right. We'll be right back with the listener questions. First listener question, Pam B, Cleveland, Ohio. Why aren't the characters out on International Street anymore as people arrive at Kings Island in the morning? Well, there's a merger going through and they're probably worried about their job. Oh, no. We're talking about... Okay. When I was growing up, you'd see the Hanna-Barbera characters out mingling. Then it was Nickelodeon characters you'd see. It's just not the same anymore. I'm never there in the morning. Did they ever have the Peanuts characters out on International Street?
Yeah, there were times that they were out there in the morning. Yeah, they were out there. I don't know. I mean, I remember the Hanna-Barbera characters, for sure, were out there every single morning, in the 70s. And I was there almost every day in the 80s. And, it was fun seeing them, interacting with the guest. Nowadays with cell phones, everybody would have really enjoyed getting photos with all those characters. But it really was part of the atmosphere, and it helps set the tone, for the day when you're waiting for the rope to drop and, get on with your day there. I think that's maybe part of it now, is that they don't have the ropes up and you're able to kind of move around the park a little bit, so nobody's really hanging out on International Street needing to be entertained, waiting for the park to open. So maybe that plays a little bit into it.
Don't you think though that, I mean, because they do cordon it off at some point, like they let people on International Street, but not any further. I think,
No,
but
you
that
can
would be
roam
a,
around. You
you
can
can go
roam
all the
around
way
a
around
little
the
bit.
whole park at like 9:30 in the morning.
Yeah, they had style. I think that was the case. That you could move around. I know when I've gotten there, like at 9:30, no one's checking to see if you have a gold pass or anything to go around. So you can't ride the ride, the early rides or anything like that. But you can move around now. See a
Okay,
little bit
well that
further back
makes
than you could before.
yeah. I mean, I remember it being cordoned off. I don't necessarily remember the characters being out, but I've never been a morning person at the park. I'm a 5 o'clocker typically, but
Yeah, but when you just had everybody parked there and they couldn't go anywhere, you need to have a little bit of entertainment for them. So I think that was one of the reasons the characters were out on International Street. And in last couple years, there really hasn't been that presence there. The Peanuts characters are pretty much now confined uh, to the kids area.
I was going to make some sort of joke about like, is that a political imprisonment? But I couldn't come up with one fast enough. Next listener question. Doug B, Villa Hills, Kentucky. Question for Ryan. What's your favorite
Question
ride
for
at
you,
King?
Ryan. You always
Yeah,
complain that there's never a question for you. Now there
because
is.
every question's for you. It's like, why didn't you ride the Screeching Eagle at Americana in 1984? But this one's for me. It's what's your favorite ride at Kings Island and why? Um, Excellent question, Doug. I would say, as far as the actual ride experience itself, I think that Diamondback is my favorite ride at Kings Island. As far as thrills and the actual airtime and all that stuff. As far as the ride experience itself, though, I think Flight of Fear offers the best package out the door. I love the alien theme, the spaceship, the hangar, the fact that it's indoors. I feel like the park would never do something like that in today's world because it costs a few bucks to do that. But to me, it's like I remember riding that in '96 when it first opened, when I had one. Let me tell you this anecdote, because again, you can't just get a simple answer to a question around here. But I remember the first. I don't know if I rode it the first day it opened, but it was definitely in June of 1996. But they had the line went all the way. It went from the Zephyr, then it went down towards what they call Area 72 now, and then they had temporary queues there of like the bicycle gates back and forth through that whole area. And then you would go through the press area on the right side. Then you would go through the hangar. Now, the hangar nowadays is never like fully open. It should be, but it never is. But it was fully open. You spent about an hour in the hangar, and then you would go inside and launch. But the cool part was that they created this really good illusion at the time. They when it first opened, it didn't work very well because there was only one train. But I remember early on when they ran two, maybe three, where they would launch a train and then immediately an empty train would come through. So it was almost like the people disappeared. It gave a great illusion. Plus, we didn't have a lot of launch rides back then, especially the launch rides in that regard. So me being 13 years old at the time, it was almost like the train was there and then it was not there. And on top of that, I don't think they let you into the station until you were ready to go. So often you never saw trains launch anyway. It was just like you thought you were going to go and you just freaking went. So a lot of warm, fuzzy memories involved with Flight of Fear. I like the new theme and stuff. I wish they would bring back the Outer Limits stuff. That would be kind of cool. But I think that is a fantastic package. Trains are uncomfortable. I get that. Mid-course brake run's a bummer. I get that. But as far as the actual ride experience itself, coupled with the theming and stuff, that's my favorite. Cool.
All right.
Yeah. What a great episode, Don. Rivertown, ice, drinks, characters.
You're talking about Rivertown, though. I mean, it's like I said, it's still. I mean, there's still a lot to like about it and everything. It's just, it's a far cry from what it was. And if you're someone that enjoys, themes in a park themed areas and things, it was really special back in the '70s and the '80s. And there's a lot of talk about, Action Zone needs to be the area that needs to be addressed first and all that. I'm not so sure. Maybe it is Rivertown that needs a touch up.
I still think it's Action Zone because at least Rivertown, while inconsistent with its theme, is still relatively good looking. Action Zone is
Oh, it is. I mean, it does look good. Everything that's there, good. But there's a lot of things that are there now that just kind of takes away from the feel and the charm that it once had.
So I guess the theories that we're debating, and I like how we're going back to the core thing after we're done with all the listener questions. This
That's
is the
right.
first part, but
It is a first for us, isn't it?
it comes down to, should the theme stand in the way of progress moving forward decades later, or should progress be subdued by the theme that's already there? We can't put a space themed roller coaster in Rivertown because it's Rivertown, or we shouldn't be hindered to put a space themed roller coaster in Rivertown because that's what's cool now. That's what it comes down to. And honestly, that second one, the latter, is probably the thought process that most places have.
Yeah, I think now we're in that age where that is going to be the thought process, and the way it probably should be.
Maybe it should. Who are we to say? All right. I'm Ryan Sirlong with Don Helbig, and this is Tower Topics.